Welcome here to another edition of Commissioner Corner. I am so proud to go across the country and have the opportunity to speak with commissioners all throughout collegiate athletics. We are here today with the Patriot League, and this is no stranger to the broadcast. Jennifer Heppel, the commissioner of the Patriot League, and the Patriot League itself in our coverage of collegiate athletics around the country. Always happy to have him here. And thanks to the generosity of the Patriot League and Jennifer Heppel, I get to rock this hat right here that you could see this morning. So happy to be here. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me again. I always enjoy this conversation.
Absolutely. So, there's a lot of things that have gone on that I don't think have affected commissioners anywhere. I think NIL's pretty much in control. Transfer portal's pretty quiet. And thank goodness that conference realignment hasn't happened again. So with all of that, obviously being facetious, to those of you that don't know what it means to be facetious, the reality that we're in right now as a commissioner, as a leader of collegiate athletics, is that the world is ever changing. NIL has more questions than answers, which is the same as when it started. Same thing for the transfer portal, although there might be maybe a few things that make sense, or maybe some parameters put on, hopefully at some point. And then conference realignment, geography doesn't matter anymore. And here we go. So how do you tackle each of these things while also trying to run a conference?
Yeah, well, here's what I will say. Geography does matter for
some
a lot
people.
of us.
Yes.
Right. It's I think clearly, every conference is different. Every conference is unique. And these decisions impact a league like the Patriot League because we are Division I. We are part of the national college athletics landscape, but these are not our decisions.
Yeah.
Right. So, we're once again looking forward to the start of another academic year. Games are underway: volleyball, field hockey, men's, women's soccer, one football game. That starts in full this weekend. And things are, while things are certainly, I would say that this is a time in college athletics that hopefully we'll look back on. I say we'll look back on in 50 years, because hopefully college athletics will still be here in 50 years. That this is a time of significant change, but there's always going to be change, and there's always going to be evolution. And what I look for is the Patriot League is we have a model that works very well for us.
Yeah.
We continue to evolve, to improve and get better. But we kind of sometimes you have to limit the bad decision making.
Yeah. And like you said, geography matters to some conferences, your conference being one of those. When you see these decisions happening, and especially in the case of a conference like the Big Ten, where there's 4 West Coast schools that are going to take 2,500 miles if you were to travel on a road, and play USC versus Penn State, and understanding that not every sport is going to get privately chartered. Maybe not everyone's going to be flown. We look to the Big 12 in Arizona and UCF, and that's another 2,000 miles. We're talking about trips that are going to take more than 24 hours if they were to be driving trips. So how do you look at that when we're saying that we're focused as an enterprise on mental health, student athletes' mental health, going through all of this travel, all of this time away, and just fans trying to get around a 2,000-mile distance and trying to find that game matters to them? How do you look at something like that?
Again, it's not our model. I think, sorry, this is the downside of being at my desk, is my phone just started to ring. So I apologize. And it never rings, so I don't even know how to turn it off.
No, it's okay.
There, I apologize for that. So uh, I I think, if I had the resolution for that, I think I would be a hot commodity for those conferences
Hmm.
and providing a consulting service. I'm not sure they have the resolution, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And but that's what they have signed up for. And they'll work their way through to the end of that. I do think it's important, and this is something you read, like, y- you know, football is different in terms of the capacity for national travel than a sport where you're playing multiple games in a week. And I'm not saying anything new when they say that football has driven many of these conversations and the dollar. And again, it is a different model than what we are prioritizing in in the Patriot League. When I look at our schools and you look at the mission of the institution, right, and part of that mission is providing a residential experience. There's an educational, but there's also very much this residential living and learning environment that is created on our campuses. And if you're not on campus, you can't you can't learn from that model. You can't take advantage of that, and the institution can't live up to its mission. But those are our institutions. So
And like you said, with the Patriot League and the things that do matter to you in geography and being on campus and experiencing it and keeping to the mission of your institution, how proud are you when you look at, these logos that make up either as full members or associate members, when you see the Patriot League in its entirety? How does it live up to what the expectations have been, and just what you can say about your pride for the Patriot League?
I'm so proud of and honored to work within the league, but then just our schools, our coaches, the administrators, presidents, the respect that they have for each other and the trust that they have for each other. Um, and the decision that they've made to come together and share this experience across these campuses and to approach the work we do with the idea that these are people that you want to partner with.
Yeah.
These are, when you look across the table, these are other institutions, they are other individuals and programs that when we make decisions together, we're stronger, we're better, we make each other better. And I love that. I really do. And I think that's the ultimate definition of a conference, and why you would choose to come together and affiliate with each other is that you believe that your partners are going to make you stronger. And strength is defined um, by some very intangible goals, values as well.
And with this Patriot League stepping forward in a unique world that we have in collegiate
Mhm.
athletics, as we look to NIL and transfer portal, as I brought up before,
Mhm.
how do you, as the leader of the Patriot League, sit down with the member institutions and have the conversation of certain things that are out of your control, right? The
Right.
NCAA, when states were trying to figure out, do we want to do this? Do we want to have name, image, and likeness?
Mhm.
NCAA said, guess what? Whether you like it or not, you have to allow it.
Right.
And so now that Pandora's box has been open, and the
Mhm.
transfer portal,
Mhm.
the crazy thing about the transfer portal is that I've been around football programs that are here in the midst of camp going into the season, bringing in players. And I
Right.
said, if this is not NFL free agency, I mean, I don't know what it is when you could be 2 weeks into camp and say, I think we need another defensive back. Go get that guy from whatever state and bring him
Right.
in. How
Right.
are you handling these two things?
I think fundamentally the way I look at both NIL and transfer is at their core, and when managed appropriately, these are very important steps forward. It's progress. right? A student athlete's ability to control their name, image, and likeness, and to monetize it if they so desire. Um, that is an important right
Yeah.
for us to have granted to student athletes and earned. And quite frankly, we should have done 8 years ago. The ability to transfer and be eligible for competition. I mean, that's what we're really talking about, right? It's not just you can transfer anytime you want. It's can you transfer and be eligible to compete right away? And that latter part is what has been controlled by both NCAA and conference regulation for 100+ years. From I am a little bit more familiar with the Big Ten history, having spent years there, but you can go back to Big Ten handbooks from before the existence of the NCAA, and they have regulations around the ability to compete after transfer. They just called them migrant students as opposed to transfer students. So that has been a part of our enterprise for 100+ years, but that idea of competing right away, that's what we're talking about here. That is that also is important to have the right to do that under, I think, circumstances that and commitments from both the institution and the student toward earning that degree. And understanding that the reality is when you transfer, you fall behind academically. That's a fact. There's data, that's a fact. You transfer, you're going to fall behind academically. So if we are in this for education, then the way that we should regulate transfer is around your academic performance, and your ability to stay on track to earn that degree within a reasonable time frame. Little subjectivity on reasonable, but so anyway, back to at the core, NIL and transfer are important steps forward. Basically the granting of rights to student athletes in those areas, but they have to be executed correctly. And I think we're struggling through that with NIL right now. I think we'll get there. It's too important for us not to get there. We'll get there. Transfer, nobody's ever going to be happy with transfer unless it's your own student athlete, and then you want them to be able to come in and be immediately eligible, but you don't want anybody to go anywhere and be eligible. So that's life. You have to tune a little bit of that out, and think about what's our goal. You should be able to transfer, but this is an educational enterprise, so stay on track here. And that may impact different student athletes differently.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point of continuing to focus in on if this is for the education of it, then what are we doing? And because education has taken such a back seat that people laugh when they hear student athlete now at times.
Right.
And so when you look at the transfer portal and you say, let's look at when someone's transferring, wants to be immediately eligible, and the reality of falling behind academically, let's create some parameters around this. What are their grades? Let's applaud and award somebody who is in good standing. But if somebody isn't, maybe we say, okay, there's going to be a restrictive piece of this for you to get back on track in order to be eligible, in order to transfer, whatever it may be.
And oh, by the way, that is part of the current rule, right? You cannot transfer and compete right away unless you're academically eligible.
Yeah, and I think
at the school you were leaving and the school you're going to. So
and that being a component of it and an important piece of it that's not discussed publicly, right? Because it's just, well, where are they going from this school to that school? Well, what's their star? How many stars do they have?
Right.
So in the transfer world, though, the fact that someone can transfer, as I made mention of, in the midst of training, you have these football teams inside of the Patriot League that are going into their seasons right now. And as an example, and here are the opportunities that you could come out of spring ball, know your playbook, go to the competitor, go anywhere. You can go within your conference, you can go anywhere you want to. And then at the end of the season, you're in a situation where people are emotional, people are upset, they can run. People get, beat out in spring ball, they can run.
Mm-hmm.
So what should we be doing with these windows of the transfer portal? Because people are transferring at times, which could be very detrimental to the program that they're leaving from. It
Right.
is within time periods where it's hard to recruit, and it's during very emotional times.
Yeah. And it comes, I think, back to this concept of trying to, and you're never going to get a one size fits all, right? But it's this concept of fairness. What is fair to the individual student athlete that might want to pursue other opportunities? What is fair to the coach, who, by the way, this is their career. And 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 in many cases, this is, they are judged on their ability. It's not just wins and losses, but it's their ability to retain student athletes, and provide that experience where student athletes want to stay. So of course some coaches will, losing a player is challenging. It's also a concept of fairness to the student athletes that remain, that we're counting on teammates to, we talked at the beginning of the show about, wanting to come together to create something that is stronger than you would be individually. I mean, that's the concept of a team, right? And when you start to lose individual parts, so you're not all working together, that's hard for every member of that team. So there's not an easy answer to any of that. One of the things with the windows, there were, when we put the windows in place, there was a large contingent, a lot of voices, including the student athlete voice, that says they didn't want windows at all. The student athletes would still say we would prefer an environment without windows. And that's where administrators and coaches came in and said, look, we need to meet in the middle on this, because there needs to be this concept of stability, and an ability to plan, but also fairness to your teammates as well. And that's why the windows where this can't happen during the season, you're going to have bad practices, you're going to have bad games. And let's work through this. Like, get stronger, get knocked down, get back up, get stronger. Let's think about it. Let's not make a rash decision at 1 a.m. because you had a bad practice. But at some point, this windows, we do have data now. Most student athletes will enter the transfer portal within the first few weeks after it opens. And if it's open for like 6 weeks, the ones that are entering near the end, they're just, it slows to a trickle. So might it make more sense to maybe shorten them a little to provide some certainty around it? Yes, but at the same time, you need time to determine the academic side of it as well.
Yeah.
And that extends beyond athletics. So it's a balance. It's going to be a balance. And there is not a perfect answer.
Yeah. And the thing is, once you open up something without a lot of parameters, it creates this world of, if there are little to no restrictions, who wants to go back and have restrictions, right? It's kind of like saying to elementary school that more than half their day is going to be recess, and now you're trying to tell them they got to go to class. Well, who wants to go to class when you could play outside all day?
Well,
So
do you want to work from home, or do you want to come into the office 5 days a week, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, it's here's where we are, and we have to muddle through these things. And at this point, you just hope for good, professional, respectful conversations to come to the best place possible, with the willingness to learn and adjust.
and I mean, that's a perfect way to put it, right? To come respectfully, to sit down, work together, and find that compromise where you can, not everything's going to be exactly how everybody wants it, but can we get to a place where each conference feels heard, that there is some type of consistency and some type of level playing field, instead of just creating more opportunities for the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer.
Mhm.
As the leader of the Patriot League, as commissioner here, Jennifer, do you feel that the NCAA, within figuring out its constitution and who they are and their leadership and all of these new things going on, do you feel that the Patriot League has a seat at the table? Do you feel like they're listening nationally to the Patriot League, or can we do better?
Number one, we can always do better, right? Like that's we can always do better. I probably though would never give is it gymnastics that scores on the, a perfect 10, right? In the old days, and I was a figure skater growing up. It was a 6.0. It was a perfect 6. Never would have gotten a 6. You can always be better. But yes, so the NCAA is, call it a membership driven organization, and decisions are made by a bureaucracy that is, we are the schools, the conferences, we are that bureaucracy. I am just coming off of 6 years of service on the NCAA Committee on Academics. And I was on that committee with presidents, with faculty members, with athletics directors, with student athletes, with, academic advisors. And we oversaw, a large part of the academic side of the NCAA. And that was not the staff. The staff supported us, but it's the membership. The Patriot League, as do all right now 32 Division I conferences, have a permanent seat on the Division I Council, which is I would say the decision-making body for Division I. It does report to the presidents, and not all conferences are represented at the presidential level. If I were to make an adjustment, I would change that presidential representation. I would give every conference a seat in the room. But that is not the model that we're in. That is not the model that the FBS conferences have advocated for or support. And so through, as I said, you come to the table, you negotiate things, and that representation, consistent representation at that level is we negotiated that away a number of years ago for other gains. So even within Division I, where there's a push and a pull, you don't get everything, but you try to look at the package and say, this is where we need to go. So yes, there's representation. I will always kind of fight against representation based on success, right? We've gone to a model more recently, and I'm going to use the men's and women's basketball committees as an example, where conferences do get seats based on success. It's not the only way to get a seat on that committee. I don't love it. I'll be honest with you. But it's, we're seeing how it goes, where I think this is the first year of that model. So we'll see how it goes. You want to make sure the right people are in the room. And at the end of the day, sometimes the Patriot League has the right people, and sometimes other conferences have the right people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I appreciate, that look inside, because that's what Commissioner Corner is here for, right? It's no matter what other powers that be seek to give or not give representation, I open up Commissioner Corner to every single conference and say, hey, I would love for you to tell your story and to tell where you're at, because in my opinion, everybody should be treated equally, or else what are we here for? There's going to be success coming in different places at different times. There was a time where the Alabama Crimson Tide weren't that great of a football team. There was a time where Dabo Swinney was laughed at when he said he was going to bring success to Clemson after being the wide receivers coach. So, to say that not everybody deserves a voice, that's wrong to me. So we put the microphone out to each of you and whoever wants to take it. And I appreciate that you have. Before I let you go, Jennifer Heppel here, the commissioner of the Patriot League, to look at the full-time members of this league. American, Boston, Bucknell, Colgate, College of the Holy Cross, Lafayette, Lehigh, Loyola University of Maryland, the U.S. Military Academy, as we know, Army West Point, and the U.S. Naval Academy for everything but football. And then the associate members with Fordham in football, Georgetown in football and rowing, Massachusetts Institute of Technology for rowing, and University of Richmond for women's golf. When I read this off and give you those full-time members and the associate members, just what it says to you, especially in having a conference that has the Navy, the Army, and a university known simply as American, that the Patriot League truly is living up to the name that you have.
Yeah, it's a great conference. It's a great conference. It's a great group of schools. And we've spoken philosophically a little bit. And as we touch on current events, I'm probably taking this in a little bit of a very granular direction, but you did mention Army and Navy in all sports except football.
Yeah.
And so I might suggest that this model is potentially a leader in the space that we could envision going to, and that Army and Navy, and probably the relationship that Notre Dame has with the ACC, it's like a great model when you look at football and being able to conduct football at a national level, and then a model for other sports that allows a balance between athletics and educational pursuits, just from a travel commitment, from a travel commitment, right? Because football, one game a week, national travel is a lot more palatable and doable. But so I appreciate our model, but I appreciate our schools.
And you said it, and essentially alluding to the reality of conferences having their full membership, and then having football essentially be structured as its own entity outside of what we see in conferences. So would you say in that case that you would be a proponent of having regional divisions and or conferences that lead into the new college football playoff? I know that within your conference you have the FCS, but looking at the bigger picture, and you mentioning Notre Dame, do we take football that former president of the NCAA, Mark Emmert, said at the beginning of COVID, which was an admission of being a leader of nothing, is how I took it, when he made the comment of, I have no say of what schools and what conferences can or cannot play. We have no control over college football. And I'm paraphrasing, but when he said that, I said, okay, well then who does? And if the college football playoff does, and it's already separated, then do we follow this Patriot League model and the ACC model with Notre Dame, like you said, and say, here are our conferences, here are the schools within our conferences as full-time members, and then there's a totally separate world where football regionally is going to be put into these pods, and they're going to duke it out from there?
That is interesting. I am not going to presume to solve the format of the CFP.
It is confusing though.
Right.
I think the FCS did it right. That's
yeah, but even with the FCS, look, we struggle a little bit in that balance of running national championships and providing access. And that's the push and pull. I think that's the push and pull with the CFP as well, it's a national championship, but it's also about providing access, which, by the way, that's the Olympics aren't just the best swimmers in the world. There's access. The Major League Baseball got a wild card, right? It's about providing access and getting to a champion. So that's the situation in FCS football. We do have a national championship, but we only seed right now the top 8, which means that you do have a little bit often a more regional base to some of those opening round games.
Yeah.
And then you get to what hopefully is a bracket, a bracket with integrity. That's a phrase we always like to use in college athletics, and get to a national champion. But it's not 100% the best teams. It's not 100% a national bracket. It is balanced by the concept of providing access.
Yeah, and I mean, the FCS, with the amount of spots that it has, it feels better. And like you said, nothing's ever perfect, but it feels like a better situation. And hopefully, things can be figured out. But
Yeah.
in closing, the strength of the Patriot League, in your opinion, when we see reclassification, we're seeing Division II schools coming to Division I because Division I conferences need to replenish because they're being taken from Conference USA. We look at, just as an example, the Big 12 takes from the Americans, the American takes from Conference USA, so the Conference USA has to go find some reclassification teams and work some things around. It's been very interesting, but there are certain conferences that have found a way to just lock in together, lock in arms, and withstand these tidal waves. What can you say about the strength of the Patriot League and how your membership is? Do you feel that they have truly locked arms and said, hey, we might not always agree, but this is our league and we're going to take care of it together?
Yeah. That's precisely it. We don't always agree, but everybody is always heard, and everybody still believes that these are institutions around the table, that they are stronger together. Each individual institution is stronger because of its affiliation with the folks around the table. And we do not take that lightly, right? There is no individual person that takes that lightly, whether it's a coach, whether it's an administrator or a president or anybody in the league office. We understand the importance of that, but that's where we gain our strength.
And you're the only conference that figured out a way to get Army and Navy together. So what can you say about having that?
They are, yeah, well, I can't personally take credit for that, right? Happened 30 plus years ago.
Yeah.
But, there really is, those are both unique institutions in this country, not just for the Patriot League, but unique. All the service academies are special places, and the opportunity that our students have to travel regularly to West Point and to Annapolis, and to get a sense of what it is like to be a student at a service academy is a really amazing experience.
Coming here from Jennifer Heppel, the leader of the Patriot League, commissioner inside of this Commissioner Corner continuation in our series around the country. Jennifer, we tackled a lot of things, but I appreciate again how candid, how honest, and how open you are about the big picture items, as well as the items that are in front of you within your membership in your conference. And I wear this hat proudly because I respect you and I respect the Patriot League. And I definitely appreciate the access that you provide to tell the story here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. As I said, I really appreciate the work you're doing, and always appreciate and enjoy our conversations. So thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks.